Monday, July 25th. It's the Just Baseball Show. I'm Aram Layton. He is Peter Apple, and we have more Juan Soto trade rumors to open up with, but also a really, really good conversation with prospect in the Pirates organization, Taylor Davis, who is just the absolute man. It was just an awesome conversation to have. And Peter, you had an awesome All-Star weekend. We talked about that, but Juan Soto now feels like it's stealing the show.
Yeah.
All-Star weekend was a blast, but now I feel like the big topic is Juan Soto and where he's going. We got to kind of update the negotiations, the topic. Where are we at now?
I think this is the biggest story in sports right now. The fact that is he the best hitter in baseball? I think you can make that argument. I know he hasn't performed like the best hitter in baseball, but you go around the league and say which hitter won at bat, it might be Juan Soto. I mean, you can make the argument, but I think a lot of people were putting him as the second best player in the sport after Mike Trout, who's now been injured. And it's always been feeling like Juan Soto has been the best pure hitter. Who would you say is a better pure hitter than Juan Soto kind of before we get into it? Because that's already a hot topic in itself.
Best pure hitter. That's a great. I mean, dude, I know people will be like, oh, but the batting average. Juan Soto is not seeing anything remotely in the strike zone. And just look at the on-base percentage and just look at everything else. But, I mean, especially given the age and the controllability side of things too, he's got to be the most valuable young hitter in the game at this point. And in terms of best pure hitter, you could make a case for, maybe a Mookie Betts.
Yeah.
And that's about it. But
I would
Juan
still argue.
Soto. Yeah, I'd say Juan Soto. I really would, unless we're missing somebody.
You know who we're missing?
Devers is interesting too.
Devers is interesting. The number one most hated Just Baseball post of all time is actually now working in our favor. The Freddie Freeman over Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is the number one first baseman moving into this year.
Is that the number one most hated post ever?
Easily. The most duets, the most hate comments. People did not like that take at the beginning of the year. And now Freddie Freeman's hitting close to 330, and he hasn't gotten out basically in the past 2 weeks. Yeah. But back to Juan Soto, because we all know how good he is. 23 years old, looking to sign an extension, looking to get the biggest bag in baseball history. But the situation with the Nationals is certainly souring. So we have some new front runners on possible trades. But I think at the end, we're going to come to the same conclusion because me and you have been talking back and forth on this. But what I think is interesting is that a new article came out on the New York Post, basically headlining that the San Diego Padres and the St. Louis Cardinals are the front runners to trade for Juan Soto because the Nationals, they want those type of prospects that the Cardinals and the Padres have, especially the Cardinals and their big league talent, like Dylan Carlson, Harrison Bader, Tyler O'Neill. They love Jordan Walker getting into the prospect size. Jordan Walker, Matthew Liberatore, Mason Wynn, even Nolan Gorman. They have a lot of young talent that could go over to the Nationals, and the Cardinals could do it. I mean, but we've heard that they'd have been reluctant to trade some of their top prospects. But at the end of the day, it's Juan Soto. And then
that was before we knew Juan Soto was available. Is when the reports were, they weren't willing to trade a top 3 prospect for maybe Luis Castillo. Or I know that's an Indivision, or a Frankie Montas. That seemed to be the idea. Yes. And even we were like, you should consider it. In this instance, just about anybody's got to be available. Jordan Walker's the one where I'm like, but again, it's Juan freaking Soto. Looking at the Cardinals situation though, because it seems like the reports are that the Nationals want 4 like impact young players just to start with. That could be prospects. That could be guys at the big league level already. It's very rare that there's 4 elite prospects in a system. It's just only a handful of systems, less than a handful, are going to have that. So if you're a team like the Cardinals that has some big league talent and then the elite prospects that you can kind of do a little bit of both, you don't deplete your major league team, you don't deplete the farm system totally, and you do a little bit of both. It sucks, obviously, that you're going to give up a lot of young talent, but you're able to still keep that farm system alive. Like it'll be depleted, but it'll be a lot better. And you're not going to really lose sleep about plugging in a Juan Soto for any of Dylan Carlson, Harrison Bader, and even Tyler O'Neill. I don't think the Nationals would have as much interest in O'Neill. I'm curious. Maybe they would to flip him again. I don't know, but I think they'd rather have a young guy with more control. But I'm looking at the Cardinals. They've got to be the perfect fit, right? In terms of
Yeah.
the team that has the most capital, both prospect and player wise at the big league level.
I think the Padres are also right there. They're not as strong at the big league level, but they have a really deep farm system too. I want to throw that over to you.
Yeah.
What type of prospects do you think that the Padres could send over? Because we know about Robert Hassel, but there are other ones as well.
That's the thing, man. You talk Hassel, and then we could say somebody like a CJ Abrams on top of that. Now, Abrams and Hassel headlining a package, that's you're not getting much better than that. And
That's
then
the
you can
thing.
talk about Story Ruiz, maybe a guy going over there, has 61 stolen bases between the minor leagues and the big league so far this year. Of course, you could even float a Mackenzie Gore into that. And look, I don't think that the Padres want to trade Gore, but he struggled a little bit for the Nationals. Who cares? You know he's a good arm, but for the Padres, they're trying to win now. The situation for both these teams, we know what the Padres answer is. And it's we want to win now. Always, we're trying to win now. That's AJ Preller. For the Cardinals, what's amazing about the St. Louis Cardinals, I'm curious what your thought is on this, Peter, as we wrap this up, is what's amazing about the Cardinals is that they're always good. They never rebuild. They are
Never.
always, and I think it's because of their commitment to keeping that organizational depth. We've seen them kind of go all in certain spots, but it's more financially. They didn't give up any good prospects for Arenado. They just paid for him, essentially. Goldschmidt, they gave up some prospects, but it didn't break the system. This would be a stray from the norm for the Cardinals. And I know we say, but it's Juan Soto. So, like, that's the answer to everything. But, like, really taking it in for a second here, is it worth kind of compromising that balance of always being good for the Cardinals? Probably yes. But are you kind of straying from what works to go all in on a Juan Soto here if you're St. Louis?
Here's my thinking. Cardinals fans, I hope you internalize this because this is the trade that I kind of thought of, and I want to throw it at you too if you think it might be too much, too little, because this is a lot. But I think this is what it'll have to take because the Nationals said they came out. They said we're not negotiating. This is Juan Soto. We're not negotiating with you.
Yeah.
What we're going to do is we have our price, and you're either going to match it or we're going to say goodbye. I think that is what has taken the Mariners slightly out of it. Maybe the Yankees and the Mets seem to be the front runners, not so much anymore. Here's the trade proposal because they want 4 to 5, at least, crazy good prospects or big league young controllable talent. Dylan Carlson, Jordan Walker, Matthew Liberatore, and Mason Wynn for Juan Soto.
I think that I thought it was going to be worse. Honestly, I thought you were going to go even crazier.
And Adam Wainwright.
And yeah, and
Yachty,
except they
Arenado, and
eat
Goldschmidt.
all the money.
Yeah, Arenado and Goldschmidt too.
No, honestly, man, like that is exactly what I would imagine. Like I would not go higher than that if I'm the Cardinals. Like that even is really difficult.
That
and
might
I
be
love
too much.
It
I don't
might
know.
be. It might be, but at the same time, Jordan Walker's a third baseman who's making his way up to the big leagues pretty soon. Arenado's not slowing down, man. If anything, he's playing some of the best baseball we've ever seen him play. I know he's put up some better numbers, quote unquote, at Coors, but he's putting up ridiculous numbers now in St. Louis, and the defense has not slowed down at all. Walker, where's he going to play? Goldie hasn't slowed down at all either. It's one of those situations where if you're trying to win now, but even for the next couple years, maybe you're okay with that. Carlson, look, I like him, but you're not batting an eye at swapping out Carlson for Soto, and they can move Bader to center. They can move O'Neill. They can keep O'Neill. They're fine. I think you do it. And I think from the Nationals perspective, they might want a tad more because they're outrageous right now. That's a franchise altering package. You now get a top 10 prospect in baseball. You now get one of the more exciting young controllable outfielders in Dylan Carlson. You get a pitcher that can slot right into your rotation in Liberatore. And then you get a really exciting prospect in Mason Wynn. And for the Cardinals, their system's still okay. Like their system is still fine after that. It's not nearly as good. It's still a solid system, and it's more than fine to keep you afloat for the future. I'm in, Peter.
Here's my trade from the Padres. Mackenzie Gore, pitcher, CJ Abrams, James Wood, Robert Hassel, and you're probably going to have to throw in another guy. Who's the fifth person that you would throw into that deal?
Like a Ruiz.
Esteury Ruiz?
Yeah.
So Esteury Ruiz would be the fifth person that I would throw in the Padres deal. That's also a ton. Which package would you rather have? The 4 from the Cardinals or those 5 from the Padres? we're splitting hairs here because these are two of the biggest trade packages ever given. But I also want to remind you, this happened with Miguel Cabrera once, and you know very good and well.
Thanks for that. Thanks, man. I
yeah, but
appreciate
let's bring it up again because
yeah.
I mean the Marlins are cursed. We were talking about that. The Marlins are cursed, so maybe this wouldn't happen to the Nationals. But if we remember the two big prospects that came over when Miguel Cabrera was traded to the Tigers back in 2004, if I'm not mistaken, right? 2006. Okay. 2006 for Miguel Cabrera, who's kind of similar type timing as a Juan Soto, similar type age.
Young, controllable, just proven.
Cameron Maybin and Andrew Miller,
who were 7th and 10th in Baseball America's top 100 list. So that imagine like that's the equivalent of basically Abrams and Jordan Walker being packaged together. Like it was the equivalent of that. So it, and also it's different times now. It takes a little bit more to get a controllable piece. But even then, that was like Abrams and Walker. That's crazy. I really do feel like at the end of the day, it's risky from the prospect perspective. Of course it always is. And that's why I like the Cardinals package better. Dylan Carlson still, I think has room to improve, obviously, but he's proven to be good at the big league level. Most of the other prospects I think are a little bit safer, and Liberatore is basically a big league ready guy, but at least you're getting a big league piece here. I would probably prefer the Cardinals package, though the Padres package has some more upside, but James Wood's so far away. You know, how long is that going to be? Hassel still in high A. It's just a little bit different. Last thing I want to say on this too is the Padres would then be depleted. Like, I think they do it too. It's AJ Preller. So I think that was what the package would look like. Padres would be back to the worst system in baseball, or close to it. Cardinals would still be closer to the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. And like, again, that's not going to stop the Padres from doing it, but that just shows you why the Cardinals, maybe you should be willing to do it. It's uncharacteristic, but I'm kind of here for it.
But at the end of the day, I still don't think he's going to get traded at the deadline. I don't, because I think it's hard unless something crazy happens. And, Preller's like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm in. Fuck it. Like, let's ride, which is entirely
if
possible.
you get either of those offers, what is going to be better than that?
But are those offers going to be offered at the end of the day? No. That's my question. I don't think it's going to happen. I think the Nationals, they have another shot to sign him. That's a report too, that they have one more shot to do it. I'm not ruling that out. I'm not ruling out a 15-year, $525 million deal. I put that out on my Twitter as like kind of a prediction. Just have a feeling after reading all these reports, after listening. Also, you guys, for everyone listening, don't want to shout out another podcast, but definitely you got to go listen to this episode. It's called The Show with Joel Sherman and John Heyman. They interviewed Scott Boras. Great interview. They talk all about the Juan Soto situation.
The good guy to talk to about the situation.
His agent. And after hearing that interview, I thought to myself, because the Lerners, who are the owners, they do not want to give away Juan Soto. I think they'd be willing to give him a $500+ million contract. They floated 440, which is still going to be the highest ever. Yeah. But I think they're going to up it, and we'll see what Soto says, because maybe Soto thinks with ever evolving markets that he's worth over $600 million.
Maybe they give him opt-outs. Maybe they can get creative. And here's the funny thing too, is that the Lerners eventually, the reward is they want to sell. So why worry about the contract if you're going to sell? I mean, the Marlins, we saw it. Jeffrey Loria gave Stanton over $300 million. Then he sold the team, said that's somebody else's problem. It's harder to sell the team when your franchise piece is gone. And I feel like that would be a situation where I don't know how it works for people that want to buy the team. I would be less interested in buying the Washington Nationals if Juan Soto's gone. And so that I think that's an interesting wrinkle in it too. The Lerners won't end up paying him the rest of that contract. They'll probably sell the team before that's up.
They would probably sell the team. I think you're exactly right. And one last point to wrap up before we get into this interview. When A-Rod signed the biggest extension ever, or the biggest contract ever, 10 years, $250 million back in the day, Kevin Brown at the time was the highest paid player in baseball. He's making around 50, which is hilarious. But he was really good for a little while.
He was really good, but
really good. So then he went to the Yankees and he had some blow-up games, and he was so annoying sometimes for the Yankees. But that's another story. he was making around $15 million. And A-Rod signed a contract 10 years, 250, so he's making $25 million a year. That's a 66% increase over the next highest paid player. If you think about it, Aram, Max Scherzer makes $43 million a year. So using that same logic, you could make the argument of a 66% increase over Max Scherzer on a yearly basis, which would be close to $70 million per year. And it's funny. It's hilarious to even talk about these numbers. I think Shohei is worth more. And he's, his name's getting floated in trade talks. I have no idea if that's actually going to happen, but it's being apparently of course, the rumor mill is going astray.
And the Angels were like, no, we're good. Yeah, I think they called.
Shohei's pretty good. Shohei's pretty good.
Yeah.
Because he does both. But isn't that interesting? Like, if we're going off the same markets that we've been going off of, and we know that it's going to increase time over time over time over time. He already did it with A-Rod.
I'd love to see what the graph looks like over the last 40 years. Like if there was a point in time where there was a bigger spike in the average salary, because A-Rod was kind of that first breakthrough deal.
Yeah.
Where it was that was the first time we saw somebody kind of get that mega contract. Mm-hmm. But even if you're talking about Soto in the 50 mil, what is that? Like a 25% upgrade from basically any other position player too. It's definitely worth exploring. And also look at the NBA money. I mean, Nikola Jokic has a player option for $60 million in a couple of years. So it's not like it's this out of this world number that we're not seeing elsewhere. NBA money and baseball money have kind of been in tandem through the years. Everyone's baseball money was always ahead of it to a degree. So, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say that we could have a $60 million guy. Why can't it be Juan Soto at the back of his contract eventually?
At the end of the day, NBA players like Russell Westbrook's making $47 million. No matter what you think about the money that's being thrown around right now, Russell Westbrook is making $47 million. That's all I have to say. And at the end of the day, Aram, baseball players play 162 games.
Yeah.
NBA players play 82. NFL players, Patrick Mahomes is making $50 million a year to play 16 games. 16. So crazy. When you really look at how many times they're on the field and how many events they're taking place in, baseball players are not getting as paid as much per game as some of the athletes in other sports too. So hopefully that amount of money makes it make a little bit more sense that on a per game basis, baseball players still aren't making nearly as much as NBA players. Like Nikola Jokic is about to make $1 million a game. Imagine Juan Soto making $162 million a year. I mean, it's just, and it's crazy. And we're going to continue to cover it here on the Just Baseball Show. But before we get into the interview, remember, I'm giving out this Corey Seager home run derby ball that I caught. Man, it's tough to see it go. It's such a beautiful baseball. It's so good. It smells so fresh and good. And it has a home run derby on it. Look at that.
It looks like it didn't even get touched. It looks like it didn't even get touched.
There's a slight mark right here, if you can see it, but barely. I mean, it's a new baseball. It was a new baseball. They hit one time.
Hit one time in the stands, and it didn't hit anything else.
Actually, right? It hit some beer though. A beer exploded in the stands. I didn't even get wet though. I was chilling, but next to me, I had to get the ball.
Yeah, you got to do what you got to do, man.